Hey, this is Owen. If you're comfortable, leave your first name and state at the sound of the tiny truck backing up.
Hey, this is Noah from Washington State, and I was wondering why bigotry towards minority groups tends to be more common on the right than on the left. I myself am transgender, and I've noticed I get more hate from those who tend to be right of center, and I was wondering if there's a specific reason behind that. I love your show. Thanks. Bye.
Yeah, I appreciate the voicemail. The reason is because the left is considered like the liberal side and the right is considered the conservative side. The right believes in traditional values and the left believes in progressive values. They want to move society forward in new directions and progress, basically. The right likes things the way they are, wants to keep things the same. It's similar in almost every country across the world. There's a segment of the population who wants to improve things and change things and make them better. And there's a segment of the population that wants to make them go back to what they were previously. And as you get older, you tend to believe that the time that you lived in is the best time. The time that you were in your prime and doing your thing and young and working and all that, you tend to believe that that was actually the best because that's what you were used to. So as you get older, turn 40, 50, 60 years old, you start to see changes in the law or changes in society in various different ways. And you think to yourself, it was better before that time. I want to go back to the 1950s. I want to go back to the 1960s, the 70s. That's why as people get older, they tend to get more conservative/traditional. Back in the 60s, the 50s, 60s, 70s, gay marriage was illegal. The traditionalist conservative position is no gay marriage, no interracial marriage either. That was a sticking point. A whole bunch of extremely repressive traditionalist takes. And the right has turned these values into culture war issues. They make fun of people who don't feel the same way that they do. That's why you deal with more bigotry from the right, because it's a traditionalist kind of ideology. And they want to keep things the same. Or actually, they want to keep them the same way they were in the 50s.
Hey, Owen, this is Sarah from Massachusetts. Quick question. How do you maintain your sanity and mental health while having to spend what I imagine is so many hours wading through all of this cultish, conspiracist nonsense so that the rest of us don't have to? Thanks for what you do. Keep up the great work.
I think that I've largely become desensitized to it. I'm used to seeing this stuff now. I know what to expect, and it really doesn't bother me that much at all. In fact, if anything, I think it's hilarious. I think some of this stuff is really, really funny. Some of the wacky, kooky ideas that these people come up with and then push hard. Robin Bullock, really, to the bottom of his heart, believes you're going to answer for trying to regulate a prophet of the Lord.
You're going to answer for trying to regulate a prophet of the Lord. And telling a prophet of the Lord that what God said is not true, but what you said is true. You're in trouble. You're in trouble now.
It's ridiculous. Like, seriously. I mean, the guy says this with a straight face. I think that's hilarious, in my opinion. So that's how I deal with it. If you don't laugh, you'll cry.
Hey, Owen. It's Shay from Nevada. Just had a bit of a weird question. Is there any left conspiracy theories like Robert E. Lee's head has been preserved in a jar and he's running the Conservative Party, or are we just kind of technically harmless and just gullible? Love your show. Keep it up, man. Keep up the good work. Thanks.
There are some conspiracy theories on the left that I would consider to be harmful, certainly. Here's a unique one for you, actually. Before COVID, exploded and wreaked havoc on everybody's lives, I was going through some anti-vax videos like years ago. I think probably 2017 or something. I was going through this stuff looking for material for YouTube to talk about. And there was this left-winger who was a vegan, and he was also anti-GMO, and he was anti-vax. He didn't want to eat GMO food because some company, Monsanto maybe, I'm not sure which one, supposedly, according to him, took the DNA from what kind of fish was it? I forget now. Took the DNA from some kind of fish. I'm not sure which. Fluke, maybe? Anyways, took the DNA from it and basically spliced it in with the DNA of corn. And the benefit to this was the corn was more resistant to cold weather. You could grow this corn in, 30-degree weather in some cases, like really, really cold weather, and it would survive. It wouldn't die because it had the DNA from this specific type of fish spliced in. And of course, being a vegan, that was against his beliefs. He felt that that was wrong, and he didn't want to eat it. A lot of this routes back to just a big conspiracy theory and gets really, really nutty. A lot of this stuff does. That's one good example of a left-winger going just entirely too far in a really weird direction, in my opinion. For the record, when they do splice DNA in like this, you only need to do it a single time. It's not like they have a huge bucket of fish and then you kind of squish them together with corn seeds or whatever, and then you have these seeds that are weather resistant. It doesn't work that way. But he said he didn't want to be eating the DNA of fish when he eats corn because he's a vegan and he doesn't want to take any kind of meat in or meat products of any sort. So there are actually harmful ones out there. They are around. If you look hard enough, you'll find them, but they're really not common, and they're not the source of real problems in society right now. There are nowhere near as many, in my opinion, left-wing problematic conspiracies as there are right-wing extremist conspiracies right now in the United States. I think right-wing conspiracies should be our focus as a society right now, not to excuse the weird, wacky left-wing ones. They are out there, they're not easy to find, but I think the right-wing ones are our issue right now.
Hi, Owen. I was just wondering, I watched your most recent video, and one of the governing body members said something that made me think. What do you think Jehovah's Witnesses would think of the God's Not Dead movie? Have they, to your knowledge, watched it? Do they think it's good, bad? Thanks. Have a good day.
Yeah, I appreciate that. Really interesting question. I think Jehovah's Witnesses would think it was ridiculous if they watched it, because Jehovah's Witnesses recognize mainline Christianity, Protestant Christian branches in the U.S. are the privileged group, or Christendom as they would call them. They are the privileged group that's in power right now, and they are persecuting everybody else around them. So Jehovah's Witnesses would see that movie and see it to be as ridiculous as it really is. That being said, I think Jehovah's Witnesses would feel that they were being treated similarly to how the Christians in the God's Not Dead movies were being treated. Actual persecution in the eyes of Christians. But they would never watch that movie because it's from Christendom, it's evil, it's a religious movie, and you don't want to contribute to religious anything at all unless you're contributing to Jehovah, and that's it. So, yeah, they wouldn't have anything to do with it. This email is from Sky. The subject is Correction and Jehovah's Witness Letter. Here's what it says. Hi, Owen. I'm a longtime fan, and I can only say I wish I had discovered you sooner. As a former Pentecostal borderline fundie, I can only imagine that your sort of content would have made my leaving the church much easier and more comfortable. First, I want to offer a quick correction. You usually say that AD stands for after death. It's actually Anno Domini, which is Latin for Year of Our Lord. Let me address that. You're right. And every time I say that in a video, I say, as Christians call it, specifically because I know it stands for Anno Domini, but Christians call it after death. They call it before Christ and after death. That's why I said after death, to draw a point. A while back, I was watching a video about Johnny Enlow, where he was saying that we're going to switch from AD and BC, which is before Christ and Anno Domini, or after death, as he calls it, to BT and AT, which is before Trump and after Trump. I was drawing a parallel between Trump and Jesus. It's weird that Johnny Enlow believes that Trump is so influential in our society that he seems to be basically equally influential as Jesus was. That's what Johnny Enlow is saying. And that's why I drew the parallel and mentioned AD in the first place. I've done it a couple of times in my videos. You're right. I know you're correct. It is Anno Domini, which means Year of Our Lord. But I was just making the point that Johnny Enlow views it a certain specific way. But I will be diligent about clarifying in the future. I appreciate the correction. The other thing is that I recently got a letter from a Jehovah's Witness. It's the typical socially distanced pioneering letter, but it occurred to me I could respond to this person either to inform them that I'm an apostate and not interested, or possibly to ask some epistemological questions in a written format that hopefully the witnesses in question might mull over. Is it worth taking this as an opportunity to challenge someone's cult mindset? Thanks, Owen. Sky. Well, it depends. I mean, if you wanted to give it a shot, then feel free. But don't expect it to work. Jehovah's Witnesses are in Jehovah's Witness mode. When they receive a letter or when they knock on a door or whatever else, they're prepared for the possibility that they're going to receive pushback. What would be most beneficial would be pushing back on something that they say when their guard is down, when they're not expecting pushback, when they don't even realize that you're talking to them about God or whatever else. Like, see them in a grocery store, recognize them, and then bring it up then. That's when their guard is down. But I'm not saying it's completely impossible. It may be worth a shot. Maybe they're a young Jehovah's Witness, not really fully invested in it yet, or they're just trying out their letter writing or something like that. And maybe it works. Who knows? You never know. I would say give it a shot if you think that you could pose a couple of epistemological questions that might make them turn their head. Anyway, thank you so much for the email. I appreciate that. And by the way, I do recognize exactly who you are. I've seen you on Discord and Twitter a few times. This letter's from Jeremy. Hi, Owen. I enjoy your pod. I, too, am a bastardized DF'd one. I was baptized on 3/10/1990 at 13 and left shortly after due to a very abusive father. I understand 100%. Fortunately, I had a DF'd mother that divorced from him many years prior. I know your difficulties with your mother, and I, too, am unable to have a real conversation with my father. I only saw him about 10 times in the last 30 years, and all conversation always revolved back to religion. Being that I'm a father of 5, I tend to understand that kids just want acceptance from their parents and would do whatever it takes to gain their approval. My question to you is, do you really think that you ever believed any of it? Or were you just going through the motions? I hope this finds you well, and if you ever need to connect with someone who knows what it's like, then feel free to reach out. Jeremy, I appreciate that. Do you really think that you ever believed any of it, or were you just going through the motions? I think I believed it. I think I did. There was a point in time, a point in my young life when my dad was in the hospital, very sick. He had clogged arteries and he needed a surgery. He needed to get a quadruple bypass, and he refused to take blood transfusions before or after the surgery or during anything. No blood. So the doctors basically told him, that's it. You're not getting the surgery. We're not working on you if you're not going to agree to take a blood transfusion. That's absurd. I think I was 14 maybe, or 15, somewhere in there. I believed my dad was going to die at the time, and I was unhappy about it, but I found peace in it by reading the Jehovah's Witness literature. I believed I would see him again. Really, deeply to the bottom of my heart, believed I would see my dad again. I did truly believe it, truly bought into it completely. I was a true believer. Now, there were some things that I might have disagreed with him on. I never really hated gay people, ever. There was a point in time when I knew that they couldn't be a Jehovah's Witness, but I didn't think that they were evil. I didn't think that they were, unsavable, or that they even needed to be saved. I had gay friends and defended them to bigots on a fairly regular basis when I was an older teenager. I didn't try to change them and didn't feel that they needed changed. So there were some policies, I guess you'd call them, that I disagreed with the governing body on, but I did truly deeply believe that Jehovah really was God and all that stuff. So Yeah, I would say, to answer your question more directly, yeah, I definitely did believe it at one point. That belief slowly faded over time, though, and eventually by like 21 or so, 20, 21, 22, I completely stopped believing it entirely. Like, not even a little bit. I saw how absurd it was. The best decision I ever made to leave the religion behind so that the brainwashing could be unplugged.